get paid, manage risk, scale up. We do not just fly, we on the sky, sky commander, die. See, above, go, we on, get ahead.
Okay, let's get started. You know, usually when we talk about building something substantial, like, say, a custom home or something, there is this universal, unquestioned expectation that you have a blueprint.
Right. You don't just, guess.
Exactly. You don't guess. You dig a foundation, you pour the concrete, let it cure, you frame the walls. It's a very sequenced, logical, unforgiving progression.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely don't go out and buy the absolute most expensive imported slate roof shingles before you've even figured out where the basement is going to be dug. That would be completely absurd.
Like, anyone watching you do that would think you had totally lost your mind.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's sequential, right? The laws of physics demand it. It's comforting. But then, you step into the world of modern freelance careers, and specifically the commercial drone industry, and suddenly that beautiful, logical blueprint is just thrown right out the window.
It really is. It's wild.
We are looking at a landscape right now where highly intelligent, motivated people are walking onto an empty dirt lot, buying the absolute most expensive, top-of-the-line cinematic dual-camera roof shingles they can find, setting them down in the mud, and standing around wondering why they don't have a house yet.
Which is the absolute definition of building backward. I mean, it is a tremendous amount of physical and financial motion, but with zero underlying architecture. You see people spending like $10,000 on a rig before they even have the legal authority to fly it commercially, let alone, a single client willing to pay for the data.
Which is exactly why we are tearing up that dirt lot today. For you listening right now, whether you're prepping for a massive career shift or maybe trying to scale an operation that feels stuck, or you are just insanely curious about how modern, highly technical careers are actually constructed from the ground up, you are in the exact right place. We are jumping into a fascinating stack of sources today. We're doing a deep dive into excerpts from a comprehensive industry guide titled From Intention to Momentum, the 3 to 5 year map, along with several related strategic blueprints for drone professionals.
It's a really dense, incredibly practical stack of material.
It is. And the core mission of this deep dive is to help you stop wandering aimlessly through this industry's, endless buffet of new gear and scattered side hustles. We want to help you build an architecture of trust that actually compounds over a 3 to 5 year horizon.
And that word architecture is crucial because a career in a highly regulated, high-risk technical field, doesn't just happen to you. You don't accidentally stumble into inspecting multi-million-dollar infrastructure or managing fleet operations.
Right, you can't just stumble into that.
No, you have to actively design the structure that allows that kind of trust to be placed in you.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can even begin to map out where you need to go, we first have to diagnose how you are currently moving. There is a core philosophy running through these sources that I think it's going to hit home for anyone who has ever tried to start a business or master a complex new skill.
Oh, yeah.
It's the fundamental difference between intention and momentum.
Yeah, and it is a brilliant distinction. It's where the entire diagnostic process really has to start, because intention is entirely internal. It is emotional. It is a feeling.
Like a desire.
Exactly. Intention sounds like you sitting on your couch at 11 p.m. saying, I want to build something real. I want to quit my day job. I want to go pro and get serious clients. We all know that exact feeling.
Oh, I've been there.
Right. It is totally valid. And honestly, it's the spark where every single career begins.
But it's just a feeling. It's trapped inside your head.
Yeah.
You can have the purest, most intense intention in the world, and reality will not change one single bit.
Precisely. Intention is just a statement about what you want. Momentum, on the other hand, is completely external and structural. Momentum is a statement about what your operational system is actively helping you do.
So what does that actually sound like practically?
Well, momentum sounds like my standardized training schedule, my meticulously detailed flight logs, my last 2 published case studies, the specific risk management language I use in my client emails, and my next 3 targeted mission choices are all actively pushing me toward becoming a trusted infrastructure pilot.
Wow. Yeah, those are not the same thing at all.
Not even close. And a terrifying number of people live purely in the intention phase for years. I mean, they are serious, they care deeply, but they never build the external structure that turns that emotional desire into a compounding, forward-moving machine.
And let's be honest, the drone world is uniquely terrible at helping you escape that intention phase. These strategic blueprints point out that this specific tech sector is unusually adept at creating motion without direction.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about it. If you are even slightly interested in this space, what does your digital feed look like? Every single week, there is a shiny new distraction. A new sub-250-gram aircraft drops.
Yep.
Then a new thermal sensor is released. Then a new photogrammetry mapping tutorial goes viral. Then some YouTube personality tells you that residential roof inspections are the future.
Right, and then the next day...
No, wait, LiDAR is the future. No, hold on. Indoor FPV real estate fly-throughs are the real moneymakers. It is a relentless, exhausting buffet of possibilities.
And human psychology is highly predictable when faced with an endless buffet. If you walk into a massive, Las Vegas buffet, you're going to just eat one perfectly balanced meal.
No, you take a little scoop of everything.
Exactly. You want to taste the mapping, you want a side of cinematic video, you want to try the thermal inspections. You fill your plate with a chaotic mix of everything. In a career context, this creates a psychological state where the operator becomes what the guide calls a reactor.
A reactor. I really love that framing. Explain how a reactor behaves on a day-to-day basis.
So a reactor wakes up every day and asks downstream highly tactical questions. Like, what should I do next? What new gear should I buy to fix my business? What random job can I apply for today? What is the algorithm telling me to care about right now?
So they're just floating.
Basically, they are entirely at the mercy of their environment. They are reacting to the noise of the industry rather than dictating their own path.
The opposite of that, according to the materials we're looking at, is the selector. The shift that absolutely must happen to create momentum is moving from a reactor to a selector.
Right.
A selector isn't asking downstream questions about gear. They are asking upstream questions about identity. What kind of operator am I becoming? What precise kind of trust do I need to earn from the market? And crucially, what should I explicitly stop doing because it does not support my specific 3 to 5 year arc?
That last question, what should I stop doing, is the hardest one for people. The ability to just say no.
Wait, let me play devil's advocate here because I know exactly what someone listening right now is thinking.
Sure, go for it.
If I am just starting out, or if I'm trying to gain traction with my drone hustle, isn't keeping all my options open the smartest way to catch a lucky break early on? I mean, why is a strict, rigid flight plan better than trying a bit of everything and seeing what sticks?
Sounds logical.
Right. If I say yes to the Saturday wedding video, and yes to the Tuesday roof inspection, and yes to the Thursday real estate gig, aren't I just maximizing my surface area for luck? I'm getting stick time, I'm making a little money. Why is that bad?
What's fascinating here is that while it's a completely natural instinct, it's actually a trap. When we look at the data and the survival rates of these businesses, keeping all your options open is usually just a polite form of drift.
A polite form of drift, wow.
Yeah, because drift feels incredibly productive. It involves real exhausting activity. You are charging batteries, you are driving to locations, you're quoting jobs, you're editing footage until 2 a.m., but you are suffering from massive cognitive drag.
Cognitive drag. Let's dig into that mechanism. How exactly does saying yes to everything create drag?
Think about the mental bandwidth required to constantly switch contexts. If you're shooting a wedding on Saturday, your brain is worried about cinematic lighting, bride and groom interactions, artistic framing.
Right, totally different vibe.
Exactly. Then, if you are doing a cell tower inspection on Tuesday, you are worried about radio frequency interference, structural engineering terminology, strict safety compliance. Treating every single option as equally viable just exhausts you.
You're running 2 different operating systems.
Yes, you cannot build deep, specialized systems because your brain is constantly resetting to zero for a completely different industry. You have no filter.
So the map, this 3 to 5 year architecture, is the filter.
Precisely. A proper map creates useful constraints.
Yeah.
When you know definitively that you want to be a high-end enterprise mapping specialist in 3 years, saying no to a random $300 weekend wedding gig doesn't feel like a missed opportunity anymore.
It doesn't trigger FOMO.
Right. It feels like protection. You are protecting your time, your focus, your direction. You realize that the wedding gig is actually stealing energy from learning the complex mapping software you need for your true destination. That realization is a massive emotional upgrade.
So for you listening, think about your own recent decisions over the last, say, 3 or 4 months. Look objectively at the gear you put on your credit card, the tutorials you spent hours watching late at night, the small gigs you accepted.
Be really honest with yourself.
Yeah. Were those decisions made out of a sense of urgency, excitement, and FOMO? Or were they connected decisions, actively and logically building toward a single coherent future? Because isolated decisions will keep you busy forever. Connected decisions build momentum.
And the only way to make connected decisions is to actually know what future you are building toward. This is where we get to the concept of reverse engineering your destination. If momentum requires a structural flight plan, that structure cannot exist in a vacuum.
It has to point somewhere.
Right. It must be anchored to a highly specific, immovable destination on the horizon.
The problem is that most people build forward. They look at the tools they currently possess and try to extrapolate a career from them. They sit at their desk and say, okay, well, I own a DJI Mavic 3 Enterprise. It has a decent zoom camera. What jobs can I get with this exact piece of plastic and metal?
Which is completely backward.
Right. That is building forward. Serious professionals build backward. They pick the final destination first, completely irrespective of what gear they currently own, and then they work backward to figure out what skills, rules, and tools they need to acquire to actually get there.
And here is the most profound insight regarding those destinations from the source material. Your target role isn't actually a job title.
Okay, wait, explain that.
But when people say they want to be an operations manager, they treat it like a badge they can wear, like a name tag. But a professional destination is actually a disguised checklist.
A disguise checklist. I want to make sure this lands. Break that down.
So when you tell the market, I am an enterprise specialist, you aren't just naming a title to put in your email signature. You are naming a highly specific bundle of expectations.
Oh.
You are implicitly naming the exact problems you are trusted to solve, the specific mistakes you are absolutely not allowed to make, the level of documentation people expect from you before you even launch the aircraft. You're adopting the technical language you need to speak fluently. The title is just shorthand for the burden you have agreed to carry.
The burden you agreed to carry. That makes so much sense. When you look at who actually survives and thrives in this industry long term, they generally fall into one of 6 distinct professional paths. Let's walk through these because you, listening right now, need to eventually anchor your map to one of these destinations.
Yeah, let's break them down. The first path is the lead pilot.
The sharp edge of execution.
Exactly. This is the person trusted with total mission success in the field. And I want to be super clear here. This is not just someone who is good at flying.
Right, stick skills are just the baseline.
The bare minimum. A true lead pilot assesses dynamic sites, manages complex crew interactions, controls the safety perimeter, and makes incredibly calm, firm decisions under pressure. They are the field commander. If the weather turns or there's unexpected air traffic, they are the ones with the authority and the backbone to ground the fleet, even if the client is yelling at them to fly.
Right, they own the immediate physical risk.
Yes.
Then we move to the second path, which is the operations manager. Now, this path requires a massive psychological shift because you are moving away from personal flight output.
It's hard for a lot of pilots to let go of that.
No, absolutely. You are no longer measured by your own stick skills or how many hours you personally flew this week. You are orchestrating the machine. The operations manager sits at a desk or, in a command trailer and builds the standard operating procedures.
They manage quality assurance. They coordinate crew schedules, manage maintenance logs, ensure regulatory compliance for a dozen different pilots.
Their goal is to keep the entire system running smoothly and safely without relying on anyone's daily heroics, right?
Exactly. If the operation only succeeds because one pilot pulled off a miracle in the field, the operations manager has failed.
That is a harsh but true metric.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, path number 3 is the entrepreneur. Now, we need to make a very sharp distinction here, based on the blueprints, because the word gets thrown around constantly.
It really does. Everyone with an Instagram account is an entrepreneur these days.
Yeah, but an entrepreneur is not just a self-employed freelancer hustling for gigs. A freelancer owns a job. An entrepreneur builds a platform.
That's the key difference.
The entrepreneur designs the core offer, they establish the market position, they build the sales funnel, and they design the delivery model. The ultimate test of an entrepreneur is this. If you put the controller down and go on vacation for a month, does the business continue to generate revenue?
Which is a terrifying question for most people.
It is, Because if the business completely collapses the second you stop personally flying, you aren't an entrepreneur yet. You are a freelancer with a lot of expensive overhead.
It is a brutal reality check, but so necessary.
Okay, path number 4.
Path number 4 is the instructor. And again, this isn't just someone who memorized the airspace rules and can recite them on a whiteboard.
Anyone can read a textbook.
Right. A true instructor is someone who translates abstract rules into real-world operational decisions. They don't just correct procedure, they correct judgment.
How do they do that?
They know how to watch a student fly, identify the subtle hesitation in their thumbs on the sticks, and diagnose the fear or misunderstanding behind it. Their burden is building student confidence without ever creating dangerous sloppiness.
Wow, so it's deep psychological work, really.
Very much so. Now, the 5th path is the enterprise specialist. This person operates inside intense corporate, industrial, or institutional expectations.
So we're not talking about shooting a local real estate video here.
Not at all. This is inspecting live flare stacks at an oil refinery, or maybe mapping a massive mining operation. In this world, flying the drone is maybe like 10% of the job.
What's the other 90%?
Dealing with auditability, strict chain of custody for the data, deep regulatory compliance, and massive risk reduction. They have to wear the hard hats, do the lockout, tagout safety briefings, and seamlessly speak the language of structural engineers, project managers, and corporate safety officers.
And finally, the 6th path is the technical niche expert. This is deep domain knowledge. Think specialized thermal inspections, high-accuracy LiDAR, or multispectral agriculture mapping.
In this role, your ability to capture the data is assumed. It's a given. Your real value is your ability to interpret the data.
Right, because if you fly a thermal sensor over a commercial roof, the client doesn't just want the pretty glowing pictures.
No, they want you to tell them exactly what those thermal anomalies mean for their insulation. The analysis matters just as much, if not more, than the flight itself.
Now, looking at reality, you don't always have to pick just one pure path and stay there forever, right?
Right. There are very natural hybrid paths. For example, moving from a lead pilot to an operations manager is a classic progression. The immense credibility you build in the field, fighting the weather and managing crews, perfectly supports your authority when you step into a leadership role to design the systems.
It gives you that street cred.
Exactly. But the crucial insight here is that when you select a destination, you must choose the specific burden you want. Do you want the immediate high-stress mission responsibility of the lead pilot? Do you want the systemic people responsibility of the operations manager? Or do you want the financial market responsibility of the entrepreneur?
You cannot escape the burden. You just get to choose which one you carry.
Well said.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Choosing one of those 6 destinations is actually choosing a specific trust target.
Yes.
You aren't picking a job title. You are picking the exact flavor of trust you want the market to place in you. Think about it. A lead pilot earns mission trust. The client trusts them to execute today's flight safely.
And an operations manager earns system trust. The client trusts that the entire fleet is legal and maintained.
Right. An entrepreneur earns market trust. An enterprise specialist earns institutional trust. You really have to look in the mirror and ask yourself, what kind of trust am I actually willing to build the grueling evidence for?
And that question leads us directly into the architecture of that trust. If trust isn't magic, if it's, structural, how do you construct it? You construct it layer by layer, floor by floor.
Let's break down this architecture. The blueprints refer to a 5-layer competency stack. The layers, in order, are legal, flight, data, client, and lead. And the governing rule of the stack is ruthless.
It really is.
If one layer is weak, the entire stack wobbles and collapses under pressure.
It's a chain, and it's only as strong as its weakest link. Let's say you have incredible cinematic flight skills, and your data processing is top-notch.
Okay, sounds good so far.
Right, but your legal layer is a mess. You don't truly understand airspace authorizations. The moment a serious client audits your flight logs or asks for your waivers, your entire professional facade collapses.
You wobble.
Exactly. Or conversely, you have perfect legal compliance and great data, but your client communication layer is terrible. You take 3 days to respond to emails, you sound panicked on the phone, that client will never hire you again, regardless of how good the data was. You wobble.
And that competency stack translates into what is visually described in the sources as the trust tower. Imagine a physical 6-story building. You have to build the floors in order. Let's walk up the power.
Okay, floor 1 is legality. Do you understand the rules of the sky? And do you possess the right certificates to even be standing here?
Floor 2 is consistency. Can you manage the inherent risks of aviation, the weather, the airspace, the equipment failures, repeatedly, day after day, without chaos?
Floor 3 is outputs. Can you capture the raw data and actually deliver organized, clean, decision-ready files?
Floor 4 is client handling. Can you scope the work accurately, set realistic expectations, and maintain a calm demeanor when things go wrong? Because things will go wrong.
Always. Floor 5 is systems. Can you standardize your quality? Can you write down your processes so perfectly that someone else could follow them and achieve the exact same result?
And finally, floor 6 is leadership. Can you make the difficult judgment calls that protect the safety and quality of the whole operation under immense pressure?
There is an absolute truth embedded in that tower that is deeply counterintuitive to a lot of creative people. The industry reality is this. The market does not promote you or pay you more for your effort. It promotes you entirely for reduced risk.
That is massive. Let's pause there. The market does not care how hard you worked.
Not at all. Clients do not pay you a premium because flying a drone manually in high winds is difficult. They do not care about your stick skills.
They really don't.
They pay you more when your mere presence on their job site actively reduces their uncertainty. When an enterprise client hires you, they are taking on risk. If you drop a drone on a highway, they get sued.
Rights or liability.
Exactly. When you can demonstrate that you know the exact legal approval paths, that your insurance and paperwork are flawless, that your deliverables will arrive on time and ready to read, and your communication is steady, their uncertainty drops to zero. Your value skyrockets.
So you want to be boring.
The ultimate compliment in this high-stakes world is being called boring in the best possible way. The best operators are profoundly boring. They are calm, their systems work, there is no drama, and they are totally predictable.
I want to contrast that with what you actually see online. It's the visible versus valuable paradox. Drone culture, and really all modern tech culture, heavily seduces you with the visible.
Oh, heavily.
You log on to social media, and what gets the likes? The cinematic footage, the travel vlogs, the aggressive FPV dives down the side of a skyscraper, the unboxing of shiny new hardware. It is all high adrenaline visibility.
But the culture completely ignores the valuable.
Right. Nobody goes viral for posting a meticulously completed risk assessment matrix. Nobody gets 10,000 likes for explaining their methodology for filing a notice to airmen.
Because the valuable stuff is invisible, tedious, and structurally demanding. But it is the only thing that actually builds a career.
So the warning here is stark. Do not spend years endlessly decorating the first floor of your trust tower. Do not spend 3 years buying new, slightly better cameras, practicing cinematic orbits in empty fields, and debating sensor sizes on Reddit, while totally ignoring the upper floors of client handling, data outputs, and systems building.
You will feel incredibly busy. You will have a beautiful Instagram feed, but you will never actually climb the tower. You will stay at the bottom forever.
And you unequivocally cannot build those upper floors if your foundation isn't legally sound. Ambition without regulatory alignment isn't a business strategy, it's a fantasy.
It really is.
You cannot build a 5-year map if you are flying under the radar, hoping the regulator doesn't notice you. We have to do a regulatory reality check right now because these legal frameworks aren't just annoying hurdles. They are the literal map of your career ladder.
Let's dive into the mechanics of this, starting with Canada. Because Transport Canada has recently implemented a massive 2025 framework change that makes this ladder incredibly visible.
They really have. They've structured it so clearly.
Yeah, it starts with the basic certificate, which is highly accessible. You can get it at age 14. You stay away from people. You stay in uncontrolled airspace. It's the ground floor.
But then you step up to advanced, which requires you to be 16. And what is fascinating about the 2025 update is that Advanced now explicitly unlocks things like EVLOS extended visual line of sight and sheltered operations, assuming you have the right manufacturer declarations.
Let's explain EVLOS mechanically because it highlights exactly how risk is managed.
Good idea.
EVLOS means you, the pilot, don't necessarily have to see the drone with your own eyes the entire time, but you must have trained visual observers stationed strategically who can see it, and you must be in constant, uninterrupted radio communication with them. You are extending your footprint, but doing so through human systems and clear communication protocols. It's a leap in complexity.
And then Canada introduces the top tier, Level 1 complex for age 18 and up. This unlocks lower-risk BVLOS beyond visual line of sight.
Flying without anyone looking at the aircraft.
Right, relying entirely on instruments, telemetry, and airspace awareness. The mnemonic to remember the pilot side is BAC, Basic Advanced Complex. But here is the massive paradigm shift for Level 1 Complex. You need more than just a pilot certificate. You need an RPOC and RPAS operator certificate. Why is that four-letter acronym such a game changer?
Because the RPOC forces you to transition from an individual to an institution. With the basic and advanced certificates, Transport Canada is fundamentally evaluating you, the individual pilot. They're testing your knowledge, your eyesight, your flight review performance.
Okay, so it's all about the person.
Yes. But when you apply for an RPOC, the regulator stops looking just at the pilot's hands. They start looking at the company's entire system.
Ah, the system trust again?
Exactly. They want to see your maintenance control manual. They want to see your standard operating procedures. They want to know your organizational structure, your safety management system, and your training program. They are auditing your architecture. That is a massive leap up the trust tower. You are proving system trust, not just mission trust.
Okay, now let's cross the border and look at the U.S. framework under the FAA. Visually, it feels a bit flatter in its naming convention. Everything essentially starts at Part 107.
Right.
But the practical progression in the States is just as layered. There's a great mnemonic here in the sources. PRAW, P-R-A-W, Part 107, Recurrent Authorization Waiver.
So Part 107 is your foundation. It is the commercial learner's permit. You pass a written test, and you are legally allowed to make money.
Yep.
But simply holding a Part 107 certificate does not make you competitive in the real world.
Everyone has one.
Right, everyone has one. Real-world competitiveness depends on the next three letters. It depends on R, maintaining your recurrent training every 24 months, so you are legally current. It depends on absolute fluency with remote ID, which is essentially your aircraft's digital license plate broadcasting your position.
And then we get to the A and the W, which is where the real separation happens. Airspace authorization and waivers.
Yes. Airspace authorization means you know exactly how to use systems like LANC. LANC isn't just a form you fill out, it's the low-altitude authorization and notification capability. It is a direct digital pipeline to air traffic control.
It's an active system.
Very active. You are tapping into an automated grid system on your phone or tablet, claiming a specific block of controlled airspace near an airport. In real time, you are interacting with the national airspace system.
And finally, waivers.
A waiver is when you look at the standard rules, say flying over moving vehicles or flying at night without standard lighting, and you formally petition the FAA to operate outside that box.
Yeah.
You have to submit a comprehensive safety case, proving that your specific mitigation strategy provides an equivalent level of safety.
Okay, I have to jump in and push back again. I am putting myself in the shoes of someone trying to build momentum, trying to get a business off the ground, trying to pay their rent.
Right, the reactor mindset.
Yeah. Aren't all these layered regulations, whether it's spending weeks writing manuals for an RPOC in Canada or fighting with the FAA portal for a waiver in the US, aren't they just massive bureaucratic red tape? Doesn't this bureaucracy just actively punish small operators and slow innovation down?
It is so easy to view it through that lens, and it is a very, very common frustration. But the reality of high-level business completely flips that narrative.
Oh, so?
These rules are not barriers to your growth. They are the exact map of where higher-value work begins. You actually want the rules to be complex.
Yeah, you want them to be hard.
Yes. Complex regulations create a moat around your business. They create intense friction. And friction is exactly what separates dedicated professionals from weekend hobbyists. Think about the economics. If the rules were incredibly easy, if anyone could just buy a drone and immediately fly a BVLOS pipeline inspection, the supply of pilots would be infinite.
And the price of that work would plummet to zero.
Exactly. When you master LANC, when you successfully secure complex FAA waivers, or when you build the systems required to earn a Canadian RPOC, you are building a castle behind a very deep, very wide moat. You are locking out the amateurs.
I want to paint a vivid, slightly stressful picture for you listening to illustrate this. Imagine a pilot kneeling beside a rugged hard case on a construction site. It's sunrise, it's cold. The site manager, the client paying thousands of dollars for this data, is standing right behind them, tapping their watch, asking if they are ready to launch.
Oh, I've been there. High pressure.
And the pilot is kneeling there, staring at their tablet, muttering to themselves, "Wait, we are near an airport. Do I need a waiver for this? Or an authorization? Or did I just need to file a flight plan?"
That is a nightmare scenario.
If you are that pilot and you cannot sort those exact words out instantly with Absolute total confidence you are not ready for big contracts. You have to know the mechanics in your bones. A certificate is you. An authorization is the place. A waiver is the exception. If you blur those lines, your foundation is deeply cracked and the client will smell the panic.
Which perfectly transitions us into the concept of building believable proof, or what the materials call the evidence engine. Because let's assume you've done the work.
Yeah.
You are legally grounded, you understand the acronyms, you've aimed yourself at a specific target, like enterprise specialist, you have the internal discipline.
How do you actually prove to the skeptical market that you are ready for the next level of trust? This circles back to our very first point. Ambition is internal, proof is external. You have to figure out a way to translate your invisible skills, your discipline, your spatial awareness, your meticulous risk judgment into visible, tangible artifacts that a stranger can evaluate.
Right.
The blueprints outline a proof ladder that you climb. It moves from existence to competence to reliability to higher trust, and finally, to leverage.
And if we look at the tools available to build this proof, the single most underrated, ignored asset on that ladder is the flight log.
A flight log, really?
Yes, ask almost any casual pilot about their flight logs, and they will roll their eyes. They treat logging as a boring, necessary compliance chore, something they do just in case the FAA or Transport Canada asks. They write down, flew in park, 20 minutes.
Which proves almost nothing.
Right. But a true professional understands that a logbook is a forensic document. It doesn't just prove how many hours you've been in the air. A meticulously kept logbook proves pattern recognition. It proves environmental exposure.
What does a forensic log entry actually look like? Give me an example.
A professional log entry says, conducted thermal inspection of substation B, sustained 15-knot crosswinds with gusts to 22, adjusted exposure values for high contrast environment, navigated complex RF interference environment, 0 anomalies. Oh, wow. See the difference? When an enterprise client or a chief pilot audits that logbook, they aren't just counting hours. They are seeing maturity. They are seeing someone who has operated a specific class of missions in difficult conditions repeatedly. A weak log says, I flew sometimes. A strong log says, I am a predictable, tested system.
Right next to logs on the proof ladder are reports and case studies. The materials refer to reporting as a career accelerant. Why? Because, again, clients do not pay you to push joysticks. They pay you for business value.
Exactly.
A stack of 500 aerial photos is just raw data. It is actually a burden for the client to sort through. A professional report turns that raw data into actionable decisions. It highlights the 3 specific roof tiles that need replacing and provides the exact GPS coordinate.
And a case study takes it a step further.
Right. A case study doesn't just show a pretty picture of the finished roof. It tells the story. It explains the why and the how. It details the client's initial problem, the severe airspace constraints you faced, the methodology you chose to overcome them, and the ultimate financial or operational outcome for the client. A case study is reusable proof. You build it once, and it sells your competence forever.
Now let's address the elephant in the room regarding proof. Content. Social media content.
Oh boy.
Yeah, content is incredibly tricky. Content is only actual proof when it is perfectly aligned with your specific destination. If it isn't aligned, it's just vanity metrics, and it can actually destroy your momentum.
Let's run a hypothetical here. Let's say your selected destination is that enterprise specialist role we talked about. You want to secure massive contracts doing high-end utility inspections, power lines, flare stacks, wind turbines.
Okay, solid goal.
But you are also really good at flying manual FPV drones. Is posting flashy, highly edited, sped-up Instagram reels of you diving an FPV drone through a tiny gap in an abandoned warehouse actively damaging your professional identity?
Without a doubt, yes, it very well could be. You have to put yourself in the mindset of the buyer. Enterprise clients, the engineering firms, the utility companies, they buy control. They buy safety, and they buy total predictability.
They aren't looking for a stunt pilot.
Not at all. They do not buy visual polish, and they are terrified of adrenaline. If a corporate safety officer is vetting you for $1 million inspection contract, and they look at your feed and see you prioritizing risky, hyper-aggressive cinematic tricks, what are they going to think?
They'll think you're a liability.
Exactly. They are going to assume you are an adrenaline junkie. They are going to assume you lack the sober, boring, meticulous risk management discipline they require around their critical infrastructure. Your content is telling a story of risk, when it should be telling a story of safety.
That is a massive disconnect.
Your content must prove clarity, judgment, and consistency in your chosen niche. Every piece of evidence has to point in the exact same direction.
It's all about alignment.
Yes. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it leads to the absolute masterstroke of building proof, the compounding method.
How do you generate all this proof without working 100 hours a week?
You harvest a single mission from multiple assets. Let's say you execute one high-quality, complex inspection job. A reactor just delivers the photos and moves on. A selector extracts maximum value.
Break that down. How does a selector handle that one job?
From that one single job, you generate a perfectly detailed flight log entry, a polished, branded client report, a public-facing case study for your website detailing the problem you solved, a direct quote or referral from the site manager, and a newly refined standard operating procedure for your internal manual based on a lesson you learned that day.
Wow. You force 1 unit of physical work to do 5 units of strategic heavy lifting.
That is the definition of leverage. That is how you compress a 10-year career into 3 years.
But, and this is a massive but, this entire evidence engine will completely stall out if you fall into the hidden pitfalls that quietly drain years away from talented, hardworking people. We have to examine the 4 fatal career traps outlined in the guide. These are the behavioral sinkholes that operators fall into, often without even realizing it.
I guarantee that as we walk through these, you are going to recognize yourself or someone you know in at least one of them.
Oh, absolutely. Let's hit trap number 1.
Trap number 1 is staying too general. The underlying danger here is what the authors call accidental identity. This happens when you start out and you take absolutely every gig that comes your way. You shoot a wedding, you inspect a roof, you do a real estate video, you try mapping a farm.
And you tell yourself, I'm just keeping my options open, I'm finding my niche.
Right, but years go by and you never actually plant a flag. Over time, the market defines you by your easiest, most visible work. You become known in your town as the generic, cheap video guy because you never demanded to be known for anything specific.
The analogy for this trap from the guide is perfect. The Swiss Army knife versus the torque wrench.
Oh, I love this one.
Right. A Swiss Army knife is a cool tool. It's handy in a pinch if you need to open a bottle or cut a string. But if you are a mechanic rebuilding a multi-million-dollar jet engine, you do not hire a guy who shows up with a pocket knife. You hire the torque wrench. You hire the specialized tool built for one exact high-stakes purpose. Generalists get the scraps, specialists get the premiums.
Perfect analogy. Now, trap number 2 is an absolute epidemic in the tech and drone world. Chasing shiny gear.
This one hurts.
It does. People routinely use equipment purchases as a psychological substitute for identity work. Because deciding who you are as a professional, writing case studies, facing market rejection, that is hard, grueling, emotional
It's
work.
exhausting.
Buying a new drone with a slightly better camera gives you an immediate dopamine hit and the illusion of forward progress. It feels like you were doing business. It feeds the ultimate procrastination fantasy. If I just had that specific $12,000 thermal setup, I could finally start pitching clients. Right. But gear cannot solve strategic confusion. A new drone won't write your SOPs.
Let me introduce you to a persona. Let's call him Drone Dave. Dave owns 4 incredible drones. He has all the newest filters, the smartest controllers, the best hard cases. He spends 3 hours a day on forums debating sensor sizes. But Dave hasn't updated his website since 2019. He doesn't know what LANC is, and he hasn't cold called a client in a year. Dave is drowning in trap number 2.
We all know a drone, Dave, which bleeds right into trap number 3, avoiding hard skills. This is the habit of constantly shying away from things like mission planning, legal documentation, safety leadership, and direct sales.
Why do we avoid them?
Because pushing the joysticks and flying the drone provides an immediate, visceral reward. It is inherently fun. Staring at a blank Word document trying to draft a 20-page standard operating procedure is incredibly not fun. It is tedious.
So people just skip it.
Right. But avoiding those hard, boring skills creates a permanent glass ceiling over your career. You permanently cap your pricing power because you cannot communicate complex value, you cannot navigate legal hurdles, and you cannot scale your operations beyond your own 2 hands.
And finally, trap number 4. Confusing activity with progress. This is the trap of being incredibly, exhaustingly busy. You are constantly networking at local meetups, posting 3 times a day on social media, redesigning your logo for the 4th time, flying random free favors for friends. You feel like you were hustling.
But you are never actually building leverage.
Exactly. Activity can be easily self-scored. You can go to bed telling yourself, I worked a 12-hour day today, I'm grinding. But progress doesn't care about your feelings. Progress is measured against objective reality. Progress asks ruthless questions. Did my market positioning actually get clearer today? Did I produce a reusable asset like a case study? Did I master a new regulatory approval path?
What is truly fascinating, and a bit terrifying, is the deep psychology behind why these four traps are so common. They persist because they successfully protect the human ego.
Protect the ego? How?
Well, staying a generalist means you never have to test yourself against the rigorous, unforgiving standards of a specific high-end niche. If you try to do a complex mapping job and fail, you can just retreat and say, well, I'm mostly a video guy anyway, I was just exploring. Gives you an out.
Oh, that is deep. It's an ego defense mechanism.
Exactly. Avoiding hard skills prevents you from exposing your weaknesses in writing or business communication. Confusing activity with progress protects you from honest, potentially disappointing measurement. Every single one of these traps acts as a cozy, warm blanket for your ego, but they will absolutely, silently suffocate your career over a 5-year timeline.
So you have to constantly audit your behavior. You have to look at what you are consuming and what you are doing. I want to challenge you right now to look at your learning diet. Look at the content you consume, the books you read, the videos you watch. Is your diet made of foundation or is it made of decoration?
That's a great question.
Foundation is studying regulatory frameworks, improving the formatting of your deliverable reports, and mastering advanced mission planning software. Decoration is endlessly comparing gear specs on forums for equipment you don't even need yet, or watching cinematic FPV tricks for a niche you don't even operate in. Foundation wins careers. Decoration just passes the time.
But let's look at the real world for a second.
Yeah.
Let's say you do absolutely everything right. You build an incredibly strong foundation. You avoid all four ego traps. You reverse engineer your trust target, and you build a beautiful compounding evidence engine. You are executing your map perfectly.
Okay, sounds great. What's the catch?
But then the market shifts beneath your feet. A massive economic downturn hits your primary industry. Or Transport Canada or the FAA completely rewrites the rulebook overnight. Or a breakthrough new automated technology makes your current manual workflow obsolete. What do? This brings us to the final critical concept in the guide, the art of the strategic pivot. How do you adapt to reality without completely blowing up the 3 to 5?
There are two actual forms of failure here. The first is rigid stubbornness, sticking to a dead service offering or a dying industry just because you invested 2 years of time into it. That's the sunk cost fallacy. The second failure is identity collapse, panicking after one bad month, throwing away all your acquired skills, selling your gear, and deciding to go chase a completely different industry entirely.
To navigate a pivot calmly and logically, you use the 3-layer model. Think of your career architecture in 3 distinct layers. Layer 1 is your destination. This is sacred. This is your core long-term identity. I want to be a high-trust, system-level operational leader. That does not change on a whim.
Okay, destination is layer 1.
Layer 2 is your route. This is strategic and somewhat flexible. It's the broad lane you are currently traveling in to reach that destination. For example, I'm currently using infrastructure inspection to build my leadership credentials.
Makes sense.
Layer 3 is your vehicle. This is highly tactical, day-to-day, and extremely changeable. It is the specific drone model you are flying, the exact client you're pitching this month, or the specific photogrammetry software you subscribe to.
The catastrophic mistake people make is letting a temporary problem at layer 3 cause a total meltdown at layer 1. Just because a specific software tool raised its prices or a local client went out of business does not mean your entire life destination is wrong. You just need to change vehicles.
Right.
I love the aviation analogy for this. Think about an airliner flying from Chicago to New York. The destination is JFK Airport. Halfway there, a massive crosswind hits the aircraft. A good pilot doesn't keep the nose of the plane locked on the original compass heading because the wind will blow them off course. They adjust their heading into the wind.
To compensate.
Right. But they absolutely do not change their destination to Miami just because the wind is blowing. You adjust the heading, but you preserve the destination.
And you can adjust that heading through 4 distinct kinds of pivots. First is the micro pivot. This is a small layer 3 adjustment in the exact same lane. It's rewriting the copy on your website to sound more corporate, or switching from an outdated drone to a newer model to meet a specific client spec.
Very tactical. What's the second?
Second is the capability pivot. This is adding a specific new skill to overcome a barrier on your current route. For example, realizing you were losing jobs in city centers, so you stopped complaining and finally learned the LAANC authorization process or apply for a flight over people waiver.
You level up.
Yes. Third is the market pivot. This is taking your existing proven strengths and pointing them at a completely new client type. If the residential real estate market crashes, you take your mastery of visual documentation and pivot to commercial property insurance claims.
Same skill, different buyer.
Exactly. And fourth is the structural pivot. This is a major adjustment. This might mean realizing that to reach your destination of operations manager, you need to stop being a solo freelancer and actually take an employed position inside a larger, highly disciplined utility company for 2 years to learn how real corporate systems work from the inside.
And the absolute key to surviving any of these pivots, the thing that keeps you from ever feeling like you are starting from zero, is preserving your transferables.
Crucial point.
Your transferables are the invisible assets you've built. Your strict safety discipline, your crisp communication skills, your meticulous reporting habits, your logical approach to mission planning. Those are totally portable. If you pivot from agricultural mapping to industrial thermal inspections, you have to learn a new sensor, sure, but you don't forget how to write a clean SOP. You don't forget how to command a site briefing. You take your foundation with you.
Which highlights the ultimate difference between a panicked pivot and a smart pivot. A panicked operator feels a dip in revenue, throws everything away, and chases whatever is trending on YouTube today. A smart operator pauses, looks at their map, and asks diagnostic questions.
Like what?
Is the market actually weak right now? Or is my visible proof just not strong enough yet to command the premium I want? Is demand truly low? Or is my professional standard just too low for the high-end buyer I'm trying to attract? A smart pivot preserves all those compounding assets we talked about and only changes what reality explicitly demands.
Okay, we have covered a truly massive amount of ground today. We started with a dirt lot and some expensive shingles, and we have constructed a complete architecture. Let's recap the ultimate underlying value of this entire 3 to 5 year map. Because this map is not meant to be a motivational poster you print out and pin to your office wall to make you feel good.
No, it's a tool.
It is a rigorous, unforgiving decision system. It is a filter designed to take your scattered, reactive, enthusiastic effort and compress it into compounding momentum.
It forces you to transform emotional desire into concrete decisions. It transforms isolated decisions into a sequenced string of actions. It turns those actions into visible, undeniable proof, and it turns that proof into deep market trust.
So I have a very specific, practical assignment for you to do the moment you finish listening. I want you to sit down with a piece of paper and write down your no list, not your goals, your no list. What are the exact low-value jobs, the shiny gear purchases, the distracting YouTube rabbit holes, and the ego-protecting habits that you are going to explicitly, officially reject starting today? Write them down, because saying no is the only way you protect your momentum.
But as we wrap up, there's a final, highly provocative thought we want to leave you with. It builds on everything we've analyzed in these sources, but it flips the entire premise on its head.
Oh, okay.
We have spent this entire time talking exclusively about building a career in the commercial drone industry. But what if the true ultimate value of executing this 3 to 5 year map isn't actually about the drone industry at all?
Oh, I really like where this is going. Think about the gravity of what we've been discussing.
Think about the rigorous, grueling process we have just outlined. You are reverse engineering complex trust. You are mastering incredibly layered, dense regulatory compliance across federal agencies. You are building systems that translate raw, chaotic data into precise, actionable, decision-ready reports. You are authoring strict standard operating procedures. You are actively managing physical and financial risk in dynamic, unpredictable environments.
You're talking about fundamentally rewiring how a human brain processes problems.
Exactly. By committing to this map, you aren't just becoming a master drone operator. That is almost a byproduct. What you are actually doing is fundamentally rewiring your brain to become an elite systems thinker. You are forging yourself into a high-level operational leader. And the open secret of the global economy is this. Those exact skill systems thinking, proactive risk management, regulatory fluency, and crystal clear communication are the exact same skills required to lead in the upper echelons of any high-stakes industry in the world, whether it's manned aviation, global logistics, renewable energy infrastructure, or advanced robotics. The drone is just the current vehicle. That's just the tool you are using right now. The elite systems thinker you become in the process. That is the true destination.
That's a wrap on today's mission, Commander. See above, go beyond, get ahead. For more training, tools, and intel, head to skycommander.ca. If you learned something new, share it, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star debrief.